to go.
Good to go. All right. I'd like to call to order the November 6, 2025 Rider Experience and Operations Committee meeting. I am Christina Walker, Chair of the REO Committee. I want to welcome everyone attending the meeting both in person and via Zoom. For board members joining via Zoom, please turn on your camera and state your name prior to making any comments or asking any questions so the public and your fellow committee members know who is speaking. Hunter, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Angela Burney. Christine Frizzell.
Present.
Board Member Frizzell is present. Hunter George. Hunter George. Ed Prince.
Here.
Board Member Prince is present. Sean Quinn.
Here.
Board Member Quinn is present. Pete Von Reichbauer. Gurmai Zahalai. And Christina Walker.
Here.
And Madam Chair, a quorum of the committee is present at this time.
Wonderful, thank you. The committee will not be receiving an REO metrics presentation at today's committee, but the standard monthly REO metrics performance report is included in your meeting packets if you would like to take a look. I'm going to pass it over now for the CEO report to our CEO, Dow Constantine.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. This may sound familiar to those of you who were at the executive committee meeting this morning, but I have a few items to share. First, on the Federal Way Link extension. Last week, Federal Way entered simulated service, one of the final testing phases in which trains operate on the regular schedule, but of course without passengers as of yet. To mark the occasion, we held a media availability at the Federal Way downtown station. That was on October 30th, and we're pleased to have board members Von Reichbauer, Backus, and Quinn there to share remarks about the transformational impact this project will have on their communities. 1 month from today, on December 6th at 9:30 a.m., we will have our opening day ceremonies and cut the ribbon on the new Federal Way Link extension, 7.8 miles, 3 new stations serving South King as well as North Pierce counties. We hope to see you all there. Meanwhile, we are moving ahead rapidly now with the Cross Lake connection. We're seeing great progress in our testing on the Mercer Island floating bridge. Most of that happening at night now, but I'm pleased to let you know that we received approval to begin testing during the daytime as well. And in very short order, you will see trains day and night running on the bridge, moving us closer to our planned opening in early 2026. I want to extend our continued gratitude to Transportation Secretary and Board Member Julie Meredith and her team for their strong partnership in making that happen. Pierce Transit. I had an opportunity at the invitation of Mike Griffiths, Pierce Transit CEO, to join the periodic all-staff meeting that the agency has, and I did that earlier this week. There were over 150 Pierce Transit employees. I'll remind you that Pierce Transit operates our ST Express service in that region and does a great job of it, as well as partnering with us to make sure that passengers are able to transfer between Sound Transit and Pierce Transit modes. Thank you. The employees who were there had great questions, and I shared the agency's appreciation for their work in making sure that ST Express service runs well as the agency's participation in our cooperative work to advance the Tacoma Dome Link extension. I greatly appreciated the opportunity to be there, and I hope to be able to return someday soon to visit with those employees again. That's all I have today. Madam Chair, thanks so much.
Thank you, CEO Constantine, and thank you for visiting us down in Pierce Transit. What questions or comments do we have for our CEO? All right, seeing none for the committee, we will move on to public comment. The Rider Experience and Operations Committee welcomes public comment as an important part of the public process. Comments are received and considered by the committee in its deliberation. Hunter, what types of comments have we received today?
Madam Chair, we have received written comments. We also have one person signed up to comment in the Ruth Fisher boardroom and one person signed up to comment via Zoom.
Great, thank you. Board members have received written comments submitted before the meeting. I will now ask Hunter to read names and summaries of those comments.
Yes, for written comments, we have one from an unnamed commenter noting missing routes from the 2026 service plan proposal that would improve riders' needs. And from Kelly Reefer on behalf of Move Redmond, supporting the 2026 service plan, highlighting the I-90 light rail connection and night owl service, and suggesting increases to the 542 bus service frequency and extending it to Bear Creek Park and Ride.
Great, thank you. So following this meeting, the comments provided will be posted on the Sound Transit website so the public can view them. We'll now move on to verbal public comment. And before we take verbal public comment, I want to review our ground rules for in-person and verbal public comment. Each commenter will have 2 minutes. Speakers should comment on the action they identified on the sign-up sheet and stay within the allotted time. All comments must be germane to the agenda items or items within the committee's purview. Speakers should not make introductory statements, derogatory remarks, profanity, or personal attacks not germane to an agenda item, statements related to a political campaign, or statements for or against a candidate or ballot measure. Speakers should not engage in conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of this meeting, including conduct that is not germane to the committee's work or agenda. This is the only warning speakers will receive. If these rules are not followed, I will ask for the microphone to be turned off. I appreciate your adherence to the rules. We will now take comments from people here in the Ruth Fisher boardroom based on the order in which they signed up to speak, which I guess there's one, so no order needed. But Hunter, I'll turn it over to you to call on commenters who have signed up.
Our one commenter here in the Ruth Fisher boardroom is
That's why I'm here in the meeting.
Yep, and our one commenter in the Ruth Fisher boardroom is Zachariah Osmond, please.
All right, you're all set to go.
Hello. Yeah, so I'm here to speak about, okay, so I have a statement that where I'm going to read. Hello, and I'm here to report you guys that on the survey, it's not listing for routes 542 and routes 545 and routes 577 and route 578. Those routes are supposed to be listed on the survey because you guys are supposed to be taking major restrictor when it comes to light rail. I don't know why you guys will not post so many routes out on the corridor, to make big change and like to take a big affection and real life change because you guys yes, you are way poor than you guys are because you guys are supposed to better future service to routes will be feeding into Link and increase service like 578s and Route 545 should no longer be around and have Route 542 increase service and extend the Bear Creek Park and Ride, like the original proposed plan. And also Route 577 being replaced by one line and Route 560 double weekend service and Route 566 terminate at Bellevue Downtown Station and restore reverse peak direction, southbound in the morning and northbound in the afternoon. And Route 544 being restored between Overlake and South Lake Union because of what you guys have there for 2026 service plan. And you guys really messed it up because there needs to be a better future change with all the growing ridership and this continuing, right, complicated route with Link because you guys take the service, right, way bad, inappropriate, and this is understandable because you guys did something absolutely wrong. And when it comes to lateral extension, you guys should be taking away big affection instead of what you have most routes being unproposed and which is not really acceptable. Because I am not very happy on what you guys post on a 2026 service plan and the which you guys, right, begin need to rearrange everything.
Thank you so much for your comments.
Could the staff get a copy of the written remarks? Would that be okay? So we can make sure we get all the route numbers and so forth. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that addition. Hunter, we'll move to online. So I guess I have to read this period first. Thank you. When your name is called, please raise your hand using the raise hand function in Zoom. If you're joining the meeting via telephone, the raise hand function is accessed by entering *9 so you can be identified.
Now, our one commenter on Zoom is Joe Kunstler. And
Hi,
please go ahead.
everybody. Oh, thank you. Thank you for your help. Joe Kunstler here. A few thoughts while we have time. First is that I'm coming home from vacation in British Columbia, and I was able to use UMO, on Scattered Transit, Wacom Transit Authority, BC Transit in Victoria. And sadly, Translate doesn't have UMO yet, nor is Sound Transit. But I really think it's time that Sound Transit consider joining the UMO family for fare collection, because it's nice to have one app and be able to pay fare accurately and fairly and equitably and travel around the great Northwest around the Salus Sea. I think this should be a priority of the Writer Experience Committee, and I'm grateful for this. I also, with a minute left to go, want to congratulate CEO Dow Constantine on becoming a regent of the University of Washington, and hope that will also result in renaming UW Station, Dow Constantine Station, and confusing University District Station, Heidi Wills Station. I think the two stations need to be named differently or separately from each other as soon as humanly possible. And of course, everyone knows I want downtown Redmond Station to be named Vanessa Kritzer Station, so it's 3 great Huskies right there. Bow down to Washington. With 36 seconds left to go, and a regular writer, I just want to say as well how much I appreciate the security presence on the trades and the conversations around fare gates. I think, I've just used fare gates all morning on TransLink SkyTrade, and it's very easy and very necessary. And there's still security personnel checking on things. I think this committee should also focus on getting the balance right in that regard. And my time's running out. So as always, go Sound Transit. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Just checking in, Hunter, make sure we didn't miss anybody.
That is everyone who signed up for public comment today.
Okay, I'll go ahead and close public comment. We'll move on to our business items. There are 3 business items on today's agenda, 2 for committee final action and 1 for recommendation to the board. I'll start with the items for committee final action, and the first one is the minutes from October 2nd, 2025 for this committee. Is there a motion to approve?
Prince, so moved.
George, second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to motion number M, 2025-55, and I'm going to call on Ryan Fisher, our Finance Executive Director, to provide a presentation on this committee's portion of the proposed 2026 budget.
Thank you, Chair Walker, and other members of the Writer Experience and Operations Committee. Joining me today is Stephanie Ball, Director of Financial Planning and Analysis, and Jenny Stevens, Director of Financial Planning and Analysis. Next slide, please. So today we are here to provide information and present the 2026 proposed budget and transit improvement plan, as well as request that the Writer Experience and Operations Committee recommend the portions of the budget under their purview to advance the Finance and Audit Committee. And those include our transit operations budget, our service delivery programs budgets, other operating and non-operating expenditures, and agency operating contingency. Next slide, please. Just to note here, the Writer Experience and Operations Committee is responsible for recommending the portions of the budget I mentioned, and it's highlighted there in the magenta box. The Finance and Audit Committee is responsible for recommending the overall budget to the board once the other committees have reviewed and recommended budgets under their purview to the Finance and Audit Committee. Next slide, please. Now we will go over high-level details of the 26 proposed budget. Next slide, please. The total uses for the 26 budget are projected at $3.5 billion. Today, we're going to cover the budget categories marked with the arrows here on the right side of each box, those 4 categories that I mentioned earlier. The remainder of the budgets have been covered in the boardroom and in more details in the other committees mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. And now we will go over the modal operating budget. I will pass it off to Jenny Stevens to walk through further details on the modal operating budgets.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. Next slide, please. Before we dive into the data, here are some key takeaways for our 2026 modal operating budget. With Federal Way Link Extension opening later this year and the Cross Lake Connection and Pinehurst Station opening in 2026, our total service hours are projected to increase significantly year over year. Also, next year's budget includes investments across our operating and capital programs to improve our services and reliability, as well as providing additional services during the World Cup. Next slide, please. Next year's operating budget totals $891 million. This visually depicts our baseline budget, which includes the cost of inflation and opening the new extensions. As you can see, this makes up the majority of our budget. On the right side of the slide, we've highlighted additional investments above and beyond the baseline operating costs to run our services, which include $31 million for operational response improvements. This will add King County Rail staff to support 4-minute peak headways, additional resources for power and electrical systems, and for the Redefine Clean program. $19 million for security to hire additional King County Sheriff officers and to bring the Security Operations Center in-house. And $13 million has been set aside to support World Cup by adding bus services, security and custodial services, and restroom units, just to name a few examples. Next slide, please. This slide shows trends by mode since 2023. On the left side, we have the revenue vehicle hours, and on the right side, we have the number of boardings or ridership. Starting from the top line, Link's revenue hours have grown by 146%, driven by the East Link Starter Line and Linwood Link openings in 2024, Downtown Redmond and Federal Way this year, and Cross Lake Connection and Pinehurst Station next year. Accordingly, we are forecasting a 75% growth in ridership since 2023. ST Express has remained relatively flat in revenue hours, and for ridership, we are forecasting a 10% decrease since 2023 as riders switch to Link with new service openings. Sounder has seen a 15% increase in revenue hours, driven by the 2 northbound trips that were added in 2024. In line with that, we are forecasting a 21% growth in ridership since 2023. For the T-Line, it's difficult to tell due to the scale of the charts, but the revenue hours have nearly doubled since the Hilltop-Tacoma Link opening in 2023, and we're forecasting a 167% growth in ridership since then. Next slide, please. This slide shows how the modal expenses discussed in the earlier slide are broken down by mode. As you can see, modal operating expenses make up 26% of total expenditures. On the right side of the slide, each mode's costs are broken down into the 4 major cost categories used in the National Transit Database. Vehicle operations include the cost of operators to run vehicles, security and safety, and traction power, or fuel for ST Express and Sounder. Facilities maintenance to maintain our facilities and track in a state of good repair, including vertical transportation and materials and supplies. Vehicle maintenance to maintain our vehicles in a state of good repair, including spare parts. And general and administrative are primarily indirect costs to provide administrative support as well as insurance expenses. So now we'll go into more detail on these costs. Next slide, please. For Link, the higher costs are driven by the new openings as well as investing in operational response improvements, such as more frequent service on the 1 line, additional resources to support power and electrical systems, Redefine Clean, and expanded security presence. In addition, there is budget set aside to support the World Cup, such as station deep cleanings, additional security, restroom units, and wayfinding. Next slide, please. For ST Express, most of the cost categories are similar to 2025 levels, except for vehicle operations, which is higher due to additional bus services to support World Cup, expanded security services, and partner cost escalation. Next slide, please. For Sounder, the increase in vehicle operations is driven by the expanded security services, higher fuel rates, and partner cost escalation. For vehicle maintenance, there was a large increase from 2024 to 2025 as the number of vehicles increased from 78 to 92. In 2026, the higher costs are driven by the Sounder vehicle overhaul work to complete midlife maintenance on the first 4 of the 58 Sound Move commuter rail cars. The increase in facilities maintenance is to support higher cleaning standards set this year, as well as the added facility support for World Cup. And for general administration, the high cost in 2024 was due to legal fees related to a heavy rail incident. Next slide, please. Overall, T-Line's costs are increasing by $2.2 million. 40% of this increase is driven by labor rates for vehicle operators, and the remaining increases are driven by the expanded security services and enhanced cleaning contracts. So with that, one more. Next slide, please. Next, we'll review the other operating and non-operating budgets. Next slide. These costs make up 3% of total expenditures and is made up of 5 categories: general and administrative, leases and subscription-based information technology arrangements, tax collection and fees, fair and regional planning, and non-operating costs, which cover the maintenance on a portion of heavy rail track, which Sound Transit owns but does not operate on. For these costs, there aren't a lot of changes year over year, except for leases, as the agency continues to return to office, and tax collection and fees, which is increasing in line with the sales and use tax offset fee, which is tied directly to the ST3 construction-related costs. With that, I'll pass it over to Stephanie to talk about the service delivery projects. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Jenny. Next, I'm going to speak to service delivery program budgets. These programs are composed of projects that have multi-year budgets and include the critical work of state of good repair and other projects that benefit the delivery of our service. Next slide, please. So before we dive into more specifics of the service delivery program budget, I want to bring up an important difference in this year's Transit Improvement Plan, or TIP. This year, we have worked to restructure all of our service delivery projects in the TIP to asset-based programs, which roll up to portfolios. This aligns our service delivery project program budgets with our new asset management structure to ensure clear ownership of work and many other benefits. In green, this shows the outline of our 2025 adopted budget and TIP for service delivery projects, and in blue, this displays the updated portfolios for the 2026 proposed budget and TIP. These align with the agency asset management structure, and underneath the portfolios, there are 31 asset-based programs. This presentation and board approval of service delivery projects will be in the form of asset-based programs. Next slide, please. So now diving into our 2026 annual budget, this slide highlights 2026 service delivery project spending by the 7 portfolios mentioned earlier, as well as indirect costs associated with service delivery projects. Service delivery project spending is $282 million in 2026, which is 8% of the total 2026 proposed budget. Major priorities within these projects include internal continuous improvement IT projects, state of good repair and safety projects, critical resiliency projects, and passenger-facing improvements needed for the World Cup. And so next, I'm going to walk through the priorities in 2026 for our largest portfolios. Next slide, please. So first, the IT portfolio is budgeted at $68 million in 2026. The largest program within this portfolio is the Enterprise Resource Planning and Enterprise Asset Management System Redesign Program, which will procure and install their solution platforms. Additionally, the Project Management Information System Program will implement and go live with our new construction management software called Kahua. And another program I want to highlight is IT Network Redesign, which will replace fiber, cable, and hardware equipment in support of system expansion. And this program includes several projects that respond to the resiliency report recommendations. Next slide, please. So next, this slide highlights the facilities portfolio, which has a budget of $66 million in 2026. So here I'm going to highlight the largest program, which is the Downtown Seattle Transit Tunnel Modernization Program. 2026 priorities include replacing the cable system, which is what delivers power through the tunnel, as well as lighting upgrades, which include lighting levels in all public areas and exit and emergency lighting in portals and tunnels to meet security standards, which is a priority for the World Cup. Next slide, please. So next, this slide highlights the infrastructure portfolio that has a budget of $60 million in 2026. Within the Traction Power program, the bulk of the funds are for the one-line traction power electrification modernization project, which will modernize the central traction power substations to make current and future ties more compatible, reliable, and resilient. Within the crossings and train control program, this includes the Acgrade crossing program work. Highlights for 2026 are wigwag headlights, final design, and beginning of this retrofit for the light rail vehicle fleet, as well as final design and preliminary engineering for automatic pedestrian gates along the Rainier Valley. Additionally, there are multiple projects in this program that respond to resiliency report recommendations, which will allow for more remote functionality without the need to dispatch signal crews to operate equipment on site. And then lastly, the vertical transportation program will complete modernization of the International District elevators and escalators and complete work on the second SeaTac elevator. These are priorities to complete prior to the World Cup and will benefit our passengers for long after. Next slide. So lastly, I'll speak to the rolling stock portfolio, where priorities in 2026 include our light rail vehicle projects, such as the systems upgrade project, a train simulator for training operators, and the Link vehicle overhaul project. The commuter rail vehicle program will continue the midlife overhaul of the SoundMove commuter rail cars. And additionally, the bus program will refurbish buses for extra capacity for bus bridges, which will be useful for the World Cup and other situations. Next slide, please. So now I will speak to the Transit Improvement Plan, or TIP, for service delivery projects. And as a reminder, the TIP includes the lifetime authorized allocation or multi-year budgets for all active projects. Next slide, please. So this slide walks through changes from the 2025 adopted TIP to the proposed 2026 TIP for just service delivery projects. In total, there is an increase of $47 million in the proposed TIP. This is largely due to 39 new projects totaling $236 million, with the largest increases in the infrastructure and facilities portfolios. This is offset by a decrease of $55 million to existing projects and programs, and the closure of $135 million in completed projects. And so now I will turn it back over to Ryan.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next slide, please. We'll close quickly with the current budget timeline and next steps. Next slide, please. We are on November 6th in the Rider Experience and Operations Committee. We've already completed all of those actions earlier in October, and earlier today we went to the Executive Committee, who forwarded on their portion of the budget to the Finance and Audit Committee. In 2 weeks, we would look to go back to the Finance and Audit Committee to request their recommended action to forward on the full budget to the board later that day for full adoption of our proposed 2026 budget and TIP. Next slide, please. That concludes our presentation. We'll be happy to answer any questions board members may have.
Great, thank you so much. What questions do my committee colleagues have on the budget? All right, I'm not seeing any online. I have a couple clarifications, and so if anyone thinks of anything while I'm talking, please feel free to raise your hand. I thank you for this. As I say every year, it takes me 3 times to really dig in, and so I think this is my 3rd or maybe 4th time seeing this presentation, but I really appreciate the REO items that you pulled out. That is really helpful. On slide 22, I think you talked there about the resiliency program. I just want to double check that because I think I heard you say it, but I don't see it here. So where does that fit in, all the work that we're doing around lowering the number of hours any of our services are down?
So within the 26 budget, we have resiliency work in both our capital budget as well as our operating budget. Within our project budget, we have around, there's 21 active projects identified that are associated with the HNTB resiliency report, totaling around 16 million of budgeted spending. And again, this represents projects included in our budget and TIP. And then there's a lot of resiliency report recommendations that are being addressed through our operating budget. I'll leave it there unless Jenny has anything to add about our operating budget.
And sorry, Board Member Walker, just to clarify on that comment, your question on slide 22, we were referencing some resiliency projects specific to the infrastructure portfolio.
Okay.
And so to Stephanie's earlier explanation, there's multiple projects, 21 across all the portfolios, a few of which were mentioned on the infrastructure portfolio.
Okay, thank you for
Yeah.
aligning what I heard and what I see. So that makes sense and appreciate that they span over. Really appreciate the continued investment in the vertical transportation program. And I know we're making huge progress on that. So worth the money. And thank you for continuing to dig into that or keep that in and visible in here because there's a lot of places for things to go. And then you talked about state of good repair. And I think I think I heard you say that on slide 19. So I just wanted to understand state of good repair, where that falls, if that's just in, I'll just ask that as a question. Which portfolio does that fall under?
State of good repair falls under all of the portfolios within our portfolio of projects known as service delivery projects or service delivery programs. So we have two main categories of projects in our budget, our system expansion projects, which expand our system, as well as service delivery projects. And service delivery projects include state of good repair projects, as well as some enhancement and administrative work that benefit the delivery of our service. So all of the different programs like rolling stock, infrastructure, facilities, et cetera, they all include state of good repair projects.
Okay, great. That's helpful. Because at this committee, we always get things as the state of good repair package, and then to see it in the budget, just matching those up, it's really helpful. So I think I asked a question this morning at executive committee, and I think, so maybe it's more of a statement now in terms of how we look at our budget through the service delivery and the operating budget. And I really appreciate the way the motion is laid out, that we divide those up. But as we continue it, and as we all say across the board, we're moving from a purely capital organization to more of an operating. And so it's really helpful to see that broken out and how we're going to continue to operate. Thank you for referencing the World Cup specifics. I know there's a lot of really great investments that sort of meet that timeline, but will also be benefits to our riders across the region because they'll be ongoing. So I don't think I have a question in there, but just wanting to thank you for digging in those couple places because I think it's really, really valuable to this committee. Board members, any other follow-up before we take the vote? And I know everybody saw that, but the timeline, we have a couple more opportunities to weigh in if questions or changes or comments come up. We won't be finalizing it until the end of this month, so we have opportunities to dig in if you want to. All right, thank you all. I think that's it I don't see any more comments or questions, so I'm going to ask Hunter to read it into the record.
Motion number M 2025-55 is a motion of the Rider Experience and Operations Committee of the Central Puget Sound Regional Transit Authority, recommending that the portions of the proposed 2026 budget and transit improvement plan reviewed by the Rider Experience and Operations Committee be forwarded to the Finance and Audit Committee to the board with a due pass recommendation.
I will now ask for a motion to approve motion number M 2025-55.
Madam Chair,
Sure.
move
Oh.
Prince.
Would you like to
Second.
second that?
I'll
Okay.
second.
Thank you, Board Member Quinn. It's been moved and seconded by Prince and Quinn. And any final discussion or questions? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you all. We're going to move on to our next item, which is motion number M 2025-56. And we have Rick Kapka, our Stride BRT Executive Project Director, Lucian Bruno, the Stride BRT Deputy Program Executive, and Benjamin Marks, our Service Operations Acting Executive Director, with a presentation. Welcome and take it away when you're ready.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Rick Kapka. I'm the Executive Project Director for the Stride Bus Rapid Transit Program. And as mentioned, joining me today are my colleagues, Lucian Bruno, Deputy Program Executive for Stride Operations, and Ben Marks, Acting Executive Director for Service Operations. Next slide, please. So we're here today to seek the committee's recommendation to execute a contract with MV Transportation for the startup support and the eventual operations and maintenance of our new Stride Bus Rapid Transit service, as well as operations of our existing Snohomish County ST Express routes, ultimately for a contract amount not to exceed $433,597,114. And as noted on the slide here, we have 3 phases to this effort, and we will describe those phases in more detail later in the presentation. Next slide, please. So first, I wanted to highlight some of the key signature benefits that we will gain from the new fast, frequent, and reliable Stride Bus Rapid Transit service. Sound Transit will have its first bus operations and maintenance facility located in Canyon Park, as well as its first fleet of zero-emission battery electric buses. Additionally, Sound Transit will run 3 service lines along the east and north sides of Lake Washington that will offer riders both new stations with enhanced amenities, as well as significant travel time savings from the current transit options available. And so, for example, on this slide, you can see that the travel time along the future S1 service line from Bellevue to Burien will be reduced by up to 20 minutes once Stride is up and running. I do also want to note that the Stride program is currently advancing on schedule and within budget as we work towards the start of service beginning in 2028 and 2029. And so now I'm going to pass it over to Lucian, who's going to take us through the details of this particular contract.
Thank you, Rick. Next slide, please. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Lucian Bruno, Deputy Program Executive for Stride BRT Operations, and I'm excited for the opportunity to bring this contracted service provider award before you at a critical time during our program startup phase. This slide gives an overview of the 3 lines that will replace existing ST Express routes, each operated by one of our agency partners, and our future currently under construction bus operations and maintenance facility. Next slide, please. Our new Stride service has several key features that will be firsts for Sound Transit as an agency, including our first battery electric bus fleet with inductive charging technologies, our first agency-owned onboard and central communication and data systems, or CAD-AVL for those who are familiar with the technology, our first agency-owned bus base, and the first time we will be directly overseeing a contracted service provider. Next slide, please. This slide presents an overview of the origin of the Stride operating model, starting way back in 2020, the development of our concept of operations, engagement with the industry and operating partners, various board committee briefings, and our competitive procurement process that led to our vendor selection in 2024. Next slide, please. This slide summarizes the breakdown of operations and maintenance responsibilities between the contracted service provider and Sound Transit under this new operating model, wherein the CSP will run our operations control center, schedule vehicle and operator shifts, drive and maintain the buses, and dispatch service. Sound Transit will retain ownership of all fleet, facilities, and systems and manage the contractor's work. This direct oversight approach will allow Sound Transit to better respond to day-to-day operational needs, including the flexibility to adjust service, real-time access and control over agency-owned data and passenger communications, and dedicated operators, mechanics, and technicians trained to Stride's unique service characteristics and performance standards. I also wanted to speak briefly to Sound Transit's commitment to labor we structured into the RFP and contract. In terms of evaluation criteria, prevailing wages and competitive benefits were a top priority. The contract also includes provisions for renegotiating increases in wages due to market conditions. Finally, the Stride CSP must comply with Agency Policy 301, which in essence requires the contractor to respect the rights of employees when they bargain collectively and commit to remain neutral in any labor organizing drive. Next slide, please. So this shows some details about how this contract is structured. The first phases will occur over the next 2 years while we work towards starting up this new line of service. During phase 1, we will essentially be relying on the contracted service provider as consultants and leveraging their experience to perform critical startup activities to keep the program on schedule and ensure reliable operations. These activities include battery bus inspections on our brand new fleet that begins production Q1 of next year, providing a temporary facility for storing, testing, and maintaining our new buses before our bus operations and maintenance facility is ready for move-in, systems integration testing between these buses and our brand new onboard and central systems, developing standard operating procedures that Sound Transit currently does not have for managing this type of service, and plans ranging from safety plans, hiring plans, and training plans. In phase 2, the CSP will be moving into the bus base and hiring and training all of the staff that will be responsible for operating Stride service. Next slide, please. The final phase, which is the biggest phase of this contract, is the operations and maintenance of Stride for 5 years from 2028 to 2032, with 3 optional years beyond that. Note that we have also created an optional task for the contracted service provider to provide supplemental service upon request, whether it be for World Cup, special events, or bus bridging. Next slide, please. In summary, we are here to seek your recommendation to advance this contract with MV Transportation to full board for a total authorized not to exceed amount of $433,597,114. This is inclusive of optional years, contingency, and is within our long-range finance plan. The contract duration is from 2026 to 2032 with 3 optional years. Note that this slide has one minor correction from the materials distributed related to contract duration. Next slide.
All right, thank you, Lucian. My colleagues, Rick and Lucian, have allowed me the honor of closing out the presentation. Again, I'm Benjamin Marks. I'm the Acting Executive Director for Service Delivery Operations here for Sound Transit. And as we look ahead, our focus is on building long-term operational capacity, setting the foundation for a successful and sustainable launch of the Stride service. The service delivery operations team is genuinely excited about what's coming. We're already thinking beyond just opening day, preparing for people, processes, and systems we'll need to deliver safe, reliable, and high-quality service from day one. We're also taking this opportunity to strengthen the agency's overall operational expertise, building our internal capacity and direct oversight, leveraging the knowledge we've gained from our other service lines. So we are flexible and resilient no matter the operating model ultimately used. Finally, we're planning for the long term, developing a roadmap that positions Sound Transit to take on more direct operational responsibility so we're ready to deliver great service for our riders and the region. I appreciate the time and consideration, and we're happy to take any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you so much for this comprehensive presentation. It looks like we have a couple questions. Board Member Frizzell, go ahead.
So I'm a little concerned about how long this contract is. The motion reads that it's for 7 years, but when you went over slide 9, it was only for 5 years. But the dollar amount, I don't think changed.
Right. So the first 2 years are the startup years that we went over in the previous slide for phase 1 during the ramp up in the bus base north move-in while the contracted service provider gets us operations ready, performs all of the testing, develops all the plan and procedures. And then there are the 5 operations years.
Okay, so how much are we spending in the first 2 ramp up years? Is that just inclusive of the 400 million?
That is inclusive. Yes, that is inclusive of that figure.
Okay.
22 million. Thank you.
7-year contract, but what are they doing those first 2 years? I'm sorry.
Should we go back to the, let's see what slide CSP
9.
phases slide.
Yeah.
8.
Slide 7, please.
Oh, slide 7.
I think it might be 8 now because we added the addition.
Okay, let's go to 8, please.
We'll get there. That's the one, right?
Correct. So the scope of work outlined in this slide encompasses everything that will happen in those first 2 years and the first 2 phases. These are the startup phases prior to the operating phase. The total not to exceed amount is inclusive of these 2 phases and the 5 operating years.
All right.
And the 3 optional years if we choose to pursue those.
All right. That's very helpful. Thank you very much for indulging me.
Sure thing.
Thank you, Board Member Frizzell. Board Member Quinn.
Yeah, one, Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Lucian, for highlighting a couple things. I think it was important that we specifically highlight that there was an RFP process. He referenced it as a procurement process first and then later. So I'm glad that you mentioned it. And then the other thing was hearing the commitment to labor standards. The one question I had, and it looks like it would be 2028, and my lack of familiarity as it relates to kind of contract compliance, but if, let's say there's challenges in the operations phase of that 2028, what is the process? So if they're not meeting up to the commitments, living up to the commitments, sorry.
I can let my colleagues speak more to this. Chris Elwell is in charge of our labor relations, but we have absolute latitude to terminate this contract if there is non-compliance with this provision. There's steps in between there. Yeah, let's have him speak instead of me. Thank you.
Yeah, please come forward.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members, Chris Elwell, Executive Director of Labor and Workforce Development. Lucian was correct. There are provisions in the contract that allow for termination for cause should the contract provider not be performing to this standard set in the contract.
Okay. Thank you. I assumed the case. I just wanted that to be also on the record as well.
Yes.
Again, thank you.
Great. Thank you for those questions, Board Member Quinn. Any other questions before we take a vote on this? Thank you again, and thank you for responding to all my questions ahead of time. I know this has not been a short or easy process, but I really appreciate the team working through all the complexities of it. And I know we're excited to get another BRT system running. So appreciate it. I will go ahead now and ask for, oh, no, Hunter, please read the motion into the record.
Motion number M 2025-56 is a motion of the Board of the Central Puget Sound Regional Transit Authority authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to execute a contract with MV Transportation, Inc. to provide Stride Bus Rapid Transit contracted service provider services in the amount of $431,597,114 with a contingency of $2 million for a total authorized contract amount not to exceed $433,597,114.
Great. Thank you, Hunter. At this point, I'll ask for a motion to forward this action to the board with a due pass recommendation.
Board Member George, so move.
Board Member Quinn, second.
Been moved and seconded. Any final questions, comments, discussion? All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you so much to the team. Thank you, Lucian, back there. Appreciate it. All right, we are moving on to reports to the committee, and I believe we have four today. We are going to start with our Regional Fair Forum summary and discussion. I'm going to call on Meg Cederoth, our Strategic Planning, Policy and Programs Executive Director, and Chad Davis, our Fairs Director, to provide the report. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon. My name is Chad Davis, Director of Fairs. Today's presentation is for your awareness and information only. I will be providing an overview of the 2025 Regional Fair Forum and reviewing the forum recommendations, explain how these may translate to work at Sound Transit and our next steps. This is the first of several committee touch points as staff explore the options, impacts, and implementation of the recommendation. Next slide, please. Previously, as Sound Transit Board Chair, CEO Constantine initiated the 2025 Fair Forum, bringing together elected officials and transit board members from all 7 ORCA agencies, including REO committee members Walker, Frizzell, and Quinn, along with King County Executive Braddock, representing Sound Transit, to set the vision and priorities for the next decade of regional fair coordination. This was the 4th Regional Fair Forum to guide the development of regional fair coordination policies since the late 1990s. The previous Fair Forum was held in 2016. The 2025 Fair Forum focused on policies to help simplify reduced fare programs, expand ORCA use in the region, and to support potential fare capping. Next slide, please. The desired outcomes of the forum were to, 1, provide clear policy direction, 2, define priorities for regional fare coordination through ORCA, and a commitment to work together as a region to achieve recommendations. Next slide, please. The Fair Forum recommendations. The forum reaffirmed the values that have guided the region's ongoing efforts to coordinate fares through the ORCA program. The representatives adopted the 9 shared policy values as seen on the slide. The forum identified 3 major outcomes to focus efforts on: making reduced fare programs easy to enroll in and administer, aligning fares across agencies still further to simplify fare payment for riders, and to help make fares more affordable for riders. Undertake the following actions with our regional partners. Align dates for fare changes across agencies to help improve customer communication. Work to align fares across agencies and services for reduced fare customers, seniors, disabled, and low income. Work to better align standard adult fares. For example, explore moving Sounder to a flat rate fare from the current distance-based fare structure. Work to examine the expanding ORCA lift eligibility by changing the income limits to qualify for the program. Explore new methods and tools for reduced fare enrollment and verification. Explore expanding the existing 2-hour ORCA transfer window to better accommodate our passengers in our growing network. And finally, explore piloting fare capping for reduced fare riders. There was also clear concurrence from the forum to not align the frequency of fare changes across agencies in the ORCA region, nor implement mandatory alignment of fares and fare changes. Next slide, please. In 2025, share the Fair Forum recommendations with agencies, councils, boards, and other stakeholders. We are here. In Q1 and Q2 of 2026, we will be developing work plans to identify and analyze options for achieving Fair Forum recommendations. Staff are already working with our ORCA partners to understand level of efforts and share workload across agencies. In the second half of 2026 and into 2027, we will be bringing proposed actions consistent with Fair Forum recommendations to the appropriate forums, Mobility Partnership, the ORCA Joint Board, agency councils and boards, with staff working to implement the approved actions in 2027. Next slide, please. The Fair Forum provided us with the guidance to strengthen our regional fare coordination and programs, and we value our regional partnership. The work is ongoing, and we will be back to you with updates as the work develops. Thank you. This concludes today's presentation. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Chad. I'm going to look to my colleagues who were on the Fair Forum with me and just see if they had anything they wanted to mention or add. Board Member Frizzell or Board Member Quinn?
I'll hop in there. This was an interesting group of folks. It was great that there was representation from across the broad spectrum of transportation folks. It was very interesting, especially when we came to the end and there was not consensus, but at least everybody had their say. So that was great. I think that it provided a good foundation for moving forward. I think we set guidelines for what we wanted to see happen, and it was extensive, and I really appreciated it. So hats off to, I don't have the file in front of me, but the few people that kept it moving and arranged all of the meetings, well done.
Great, thank you, Board Member. Board Member Quinn?
Yeah, I'd happy to pick up from there where Board Member Frizzell kind of talked about the facilitation. The facilitation was great. I think the members who served on this Fair Forum were had a role that has been previously taken up by other members. So I think it's every 5 years or 10 years to really talk about regional collaboration. And, I think that my takeaways is regional collaboration is difficult, but at the same time, we share a lot of the same interests. I think what was really highlighted was the complexities of the transit systems. But I think I really enjoyed this commitment to really push for regional collaboration and anticipate challenges and opportunities and come up with solutions. And I think that was reflected in the 3 options. Pretty excited because we also talked a lot about planning for FIFA, security commitments, and other components. And so I feel like the final recommendations and the steps that are left to go, I think we laid the good groundwork so that we can move ahead. Again, I feel strongly that there was a commitment to the rider experience. There was a commitment to say, hey, transit systems that could work together, it's important because we need to create the benefit for our riders for having kind of a seamless and consistent practices across modes and transportation. I'm sorry, I need some water. But I really felt like we wanted to go big, and I think some of the ideas are really big, but at the end of the day, the goal is to make it fair for our riders, make it seamless, and to get our transit organizations to be coordinated so that we can have the outcomes that we want. So I was very excited to participate. And then Chair Walker, I'm sure you'd have the last word, but we talked a lot about what we can come up with and what we could push. And so these recommendations are a reflection of that. And I believe there was a lot of support amongst the transit organizations. And when, there was a challenge, something that they couldn't support, we had a clear kind of open conversation of this is why it's a challenge for us. And then we figured out a path to go forward. So again, kind of being kind of a transit guy, this was kind of really great to see how we can all kind of come together and collaborate.
Thank you, Board Member Quinn. And I think our colleagues are probably realizing how many hours we spent together working through this. And I think Board Member Quinn mentioned this fair form happens every 10 years, and we could do it more often. And I think that's sort of one of our hopes is that we could, if not fully convening, at least touching base on the recommendations and having that thread. Because of the turnover of elected officials, we end up with brand new people. And we don't feel like there's a checkpoint for the fairs throughout those 10 years. So hopefully we started the ball rolling on some of those things. And I will also reiterate one other thing that Board Member Quinn said, and that is that the group really centered the rider experience. And I think that came through over and over. And coordinating between this many agencies is very challenging, but I think we brought forward a lot of really good and important things that will be really helpful for riders. So excited about that work. And has the final report gone out to the Sound Transit Board?
I do not know the answer to that. I know it was distributed at least somewhat internally in the middle of October.
Okay. Yeah, I sat as a representative for Pierce Transit actually on that group, so I sent it out to my colleagues. So just encourage those who haven't seen that final report, we'll figure out how to get that out to the Sound Transit Board. So really appreciate the presentation. Thank you for being here. All right, our second presentation is Fair Engagement, and we have Brian DePlace, our Acting Security and Fair Engagement Executive Director, here to provide the report. Brian, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. I am Brian DePlace, the Acting Executive Director of Security and Fair Engagement. With me is Tanya Stark, the Deputy Director of our Fair Ambassadors. So we're going to provide one of our regular program updates that the committee has requested that occur on some frequency throughout the year. In many ways, we are the implementation part of the compliance piece of the fair discussion that just happened. So if we go to the next slide, I'll turn it over to Tanya for a few slides here.
Good afternoon. Today we'll provide an overview of our current and projected staffing levels, discuss training progress for our new cohort, and review the key performance data on fair compliance inspection rates and the fair media boardings. We're also going to take a deeper look into our ongoing projects and strategic priorities. Next slide. This slide here highlights our current Fair Ambassador staffing levels. We currently have 26 active FAs with the addition of this cohort 9, which includes 10 new trainees who began on October 20th. Our total staffing rises to 36. Looking ahead, though, we plan to recruit and hire an additional 15 Fair Ambassadors as part of cohort 10. These positions are all approved in the 2025 budget, and we're currently working with our talent acquisition team to finalize the recruitment and interview schedules, which we anticipate will begin in late November to early December with a targeted start date in early January. Next slide, please. We are fortunate to have a dedicated and highly capable training team that continues to provide exceptional support. New Fair Ambassador trainees complete approximately 200 hours of training over a 4 to 5 week period. This training is a balanced mix of internal instruction, which is led by Sound Transit staff, and also external sessions provided by partner agencies and community organizations, such as de-escalation training and compassion fatigue. We also do field-based practice where trainees conduct inspections and engage with riders under the guidance of supervisors and experienced Fair Ambassadors. This comprehensive training approach ensures that all these new team members are fully prepared, knowledgeable, and confident in both customer service and fair engagement responsibilities. Next slide, please.
So I'll talk for a couple slides on metrics. So this slide shows how our fair inspection compliance rate has gradually improved over time. And this is a metric we often share with the committee. The visualization may look a little bit different. On the table on the left, you'll see inspections, warnings, and our inspection rate on that far right column of the table. So you'll see in January 2024, our inspection rate was just hovering under 2%. And by July of this year, it increased to just under 3%. And if you compare that to the graph on the right, you'll see a trend line that represents the inspection compliance rate. So the percentage of riders who are in compliance when our Fair Ambassadors are inspecting them. And that rate has steadily moved upwards as we've maintained a consistent presence on the system. So I think 2 key points to keep here, in addition to that rate going up. While we inspect 2 to 3% of riders on average monthly, the original program target was a 10% inspection rate. And the inspection compliance is different from fair media compliance, which we also report on regularly to this committee, and we'll cover in the next slide, please. So this slide, as I mentioned, focuses on fair media compliance, on Link specifically, and that measures essentially the taps on validators compared to actual ridership. You'll see also an upward trend line since January of 2024, which is roughly correlated with an increase of Fair Ambassadors on the system. However, as I mentioned, since our ambassadors inspect only about 2 to 3% of riders, it's reasonable to assume that compliance drops when the staff is not visible on the system. That can be due to special events, staffing coverage gaps, or when ambassadors shift to more customer-focused assistance during service disruptions. And we'll show metrics on that on the next slide, please. So as we discussed, this slide shows the number of instances where our Fair Ambassadors on any given month have provided assistance to passengers during planned and unplanned service disruptions. So 59 occurrences throughout the year, either through advanced coordination and planning or through just a rapid redeployment when an emerging disruption occurs. And I will turn it over to Tanya to close us out.
Next slide, please. To conclude this briefing, we would like to provide updates on our current projects and priorities, beginning with the Uniform Modification Initiative. Currently, Fair Ambassadors are provided with an ST-branded vest, jacket, and headwear, and work bags. This proposed modification expands this to include navy blue and khaki cargo pants, along with gray and blue button-down collared shirts. In addition, ergonomic bags have been introduced to help reduce FA injuries. This initiative goes beyond attire as it represents a strategic investment in strengthening the professional identity of our workforce. By standardizing uniforms, we reinforce a consistent, polished image that reflects both our brand values and commitment to employee well-being. We're also actively advancing several safety mitigation strategies, including piloting the use of radios and also collaborating with IT to improve the cell connectivity within the tunnel. This enhancement aims to address areas where fare ambassadors currently experience difficulty transmitting data or making emergency calls into the SOC or 911. In parallel, we are focused on responsibly scaling our team to align with anticipated growth to include supporting the Federal Way and Cross Lake extensions, preparations for World Cup, expanded disruption response, and bus rapid transit operations. We're also in the process of identifying and outfitting appropriate spaces to transition our teams into operational zones. This shift will significantly reduce disruption response times while enabling more efficient inspections by minimizing travel in and out of Union Station. Pending any question, this will conclude our update.
Thank you. What questions does the committee have? Board Member Quinn, go ahead.
All right, thank you. And I'll be consistent here. And I'm just wondering how the fare ambassadors staffing and training interface with the subject we just had prior to, and I think we've talked a little bit about it in this committee on the safety task force as well. I know it referenced when you first started your presentation, but just wondered if you could kind of speak to it, because there is a through line between the Fair Forum, the Safety Task Force, FIFA. I mean, it's kind of all converging.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So as you may remember, board member, we were actually sitting in King County Council chambers during the last update from the committee. And, I think one of the big recommendations that came out of that committee was, maybe two things, right? Increased response times as well as more eyes and ears on the system. And so while fare ambassadors do not play a security role, they do, as Tanya mentioned, play a significant role in just providing an authority figure and somebody that can help passengers get around on the system. Even in July, when we provided our last update, we talked a lot about how fare ambassadors do more than just compliance work. They're also reporting in on safety issues back to our security operations center. So I think to succinctly answer your question now, the staffing up the fare ambassadors is intimately tied with the recommendations that came out of that committee, in which we are active participants of.
And as you mentioned, also disruption of service as well. And I think between the Fair Forum and the Safety Task Force was just really having opportunities for resources to be provided, so you can kind of move along that disruption.
That's correct. So you'll see when we do unfortunately have a disruption, even if it's unplanned, sometimes there'll be a bus bridge when our fare ambassadors are on. They now actually self-deploy. So when they're monitoring what's happening, and they self-deploy and they go out there and they will assist passengers with the bus bridge, help direct them to the right locations, and actually stand down the compliance efforts during that time. So we don't end up with a situation where somebody is experiencing a service disruption and they're being asked for their fares, right? So they have a really global view of what's happening and can really direct people to where they need to be going.
Thanks, Brian, for your participation, your ongoing participation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Quinn. What other questions do we have? All right, I have one quick question on that last additional projects. You have BRT on there for future planning. I know fare compliance looks very different on buses than it does on Link. What is the role of ambassadors now on the express buses? Are ambassadors riding express buses, and then would BRT look similar?
So they do not currently inspect on ST Express, but we are going through talking with Lucian's team to decide what the best way is to go about this, where the fare paid zone is, which is actually on the bus. So all of this is being discussed right now as far as what the staffing for that would look like.
Okay. And if we had a policy or a plan for ambassadors on BRT, does the discussion include express buses, or are we leaving that out of it?
That's a great question, Brian.
Right now, it would not be within the scope of those discussions, but we'd be happy to consider the pros and cons of that. One of the interesting things about ST Express, as you know, it's many of the routes, especially from Pierce Transit, are long haul. So if you get on a Tacoma Dome station, that's a long ways, when how many people ride on a bus. So it's relatively limited number of people and maybe not always the most efficient use of resources. So we could talk about how to make that balance appropriately.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not suggesting that we add ambassadors to express buses. I just was curious where we were on that. And I see BRT makes a little bit more sense to potentially add them in at certain times. So thank you, appreciate that. All right, seeing no other comments or questions, I think we'll move on. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, as always, to the ambassadors, if you'll pass on our thanks. All right, our passenger impact program is up next, and Kevin Mizuta, our Link Right-of-Way Access Deputy Director, is here to provide the report.
Good afternoon, Chair Walker and committee members. My name is Kevin Mizuta, Deputy Director of Link Right-of-Way Access, and I'm here today to report on the Passenger Impact Program. Next slide, please. The intent of this program is to ensure that service for our riders remains a priority. We balance the need for construction with the need to serve our passengers by working closely with our operational partners to minimize the impact of planned disruptions. Today's report will provide an update on oncoming disruptions throughout the rest of the calendar year. The purpose of this presentation is for information only. No board action is expected today. Next slide, please. October nightly single tracking for the Pinehurst station was delayed due to external project challenges. Nightly single tracking at the north end of the one line will resume on December 4th from 7 p.m. to close, generating up to 12-minute headways system-wide. We will continue to avoid scheduling on days of events with high attendance and will delay disruption until 9 p.m. around the holidays. On Saturday, November 8th, the Capitol Hill and UW stations will be closed until 2 p.m. to replace network switches. This is a continuation of the network gear replacement effort that began at the Beacon Hill station on October 26th. A bus bridge will be provided from Westlake Station to University District Station. Regular train headways can be achieved since we can still pass empty trains through the closed stations. Next slide, please. The downtown tunnel will be completely closed on Sunday, November 16th for more rail repair work. A bus bridge will be provided from Stadium Station to Capitol Hill Station. The tunnel will open for regular service on Monday morning. During this closure, we are piloting a move at the southern end of bus bridging operations from Soto to Stadium Station based on feedback from our stakeholders and riders. If all goes well, the Stadium Station will become the default southern terminus for bus bridging tunnel closures unless project scopes dictate otherwise. Next slide, please. We are continuing to coordinate a regularly scheduled monthly maintenance window in the form of extended non-revenue periods. This equates to 3 consecutive early night closures during the week. The location of the service disruptions rotate to predetermined segments each month. These planned closures help provide stability in resource management and scheduling for maintenance operations. The first monthly maintenance window occurred on October 21st through 23rd. The southern segment of the one line was closed from Angle Lake to Rainier Beach at 11 p.m. each night, and maintenance efforts needing longer non-revenue hours were completed. The next 3-night monthly maintenance closures are scheduled for November 18th from Soto to Capitol Hill and December 2nd from Capitol Hill to Northgate. The next objective is to develop a 1-year plan of predetermined monthly dates and segments to promote transparency for better planning and operations. Next slide, please. Signal system improvements are needed in the downtown tunnel to accommodate operations of the East Link connection. This signal enhancement work will prepare us to safely run trains at 4-minute headways when the 2 lines connect. What has been scheduled so far are 3 extended non-revenue closures starting from 11 p.m. to 10 a.m. the next morning on December 12th, 20th, and 27th. 2 full weekend closures will be planned for January, and we are looking to strategically avoid other regional events. Extensive coordination has occurred with our community partners to finalize the December dates and will continue as we plan January. More information will be shared with this committee as it becomes available. Next slide, please. This concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kevin. As always, any questions from the committee? All right, we'll appreciate the comprehensive report. And as always, we know that closures are never fun for riders, but they keep us moving so that we can have predictable, reliable service. So we know we need to do it. We appreciate it. Thanks. All right, we have one more presentation, and that is our vertical transportation update. We have Shankar Rajaram, our acting core infrastructure and asset management executive director, and John Carini, our vertical transportation deputy director, here to provide the report. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Walker and members of the committee. My name is John Carini. I'm the Deputy Director of Vertical Transportation. I'm joined today, as you mentioned, by Shankar Rajaram, the Acting Executive Director of Core Infrastructure and Asset Management. Next slide, please. I'm here today to provide an overview of our vertical transportation current state and portfolio growth. We'll talk about our asset targets and our performance to those targets. We'll briefly touch on our program challenges and talk about future state of our vertical transportation program. Next slide, please. Today's portfolio consists of 249 total vertical transportation assets, broken up be 109 escalators and 140 elevators. That number will grow later this year, next couple weeks, as we add Federal Way Link Extension, adding 15 vertical transportation assets, and early next year when the remaining Eastlink stations added another 10. The map on the right-hand side shows our expanse of our vertical transportation portfolio, which has a radius of about 70 miles all the way down to Lakewood, all the way up to Everett, and as we continue to expand on the east side. It consists of about 49 locations, which include Link Station, Sounder, ST Express, our operations and maintenance facilities, and our non-revenue locations, such as the elevators here at Union Station. Next slide, please. Here you can see our projected vertical transportation asset portfolio growth. As I mentioned, once we add those Federal Way Link vertical transportation assets, we'll have a total of 264 by the end of 2025, and our projection through 2041 is nearly 600 vertical transportation assets in our portfolio. Next slide, please. The question we get regularly is, why are vertical transportation assets inoperable? Why are there barricades in front of our elevators and escalators? Some common misconceptions is that they're broken down due to mechanical failure. And what we've come to find out through the data is mechanical failure only accounts for about 30 to 35% of our overall outages. Other outages included unintentional misuse, could be anything from a piece of luggage getting hung up on an escalator, intentional vandalism, and things such as utility or station power fluctuations. Next slide, please. Our overall VT overall availability targets are 97% for elevators and 95% for escalators. The difference in overall targets is really due to our annual maintenance schedules. A standard elevator takes only about a half day for an annual test, and escalators, depending on the length, can take anywhere from 2 days to 4 full days for an annual test on there. Our performance year to date for elevators is exceeding targets of 98.3%, and our escalators also exceeding targets of 96.6%. Next slide, please. Another metric we document is overall unplanned out of service hours. These bars represent the total unplanned out of service hours across our entire portfolio for the respective years across all 6 unplanned categories, which were shown in the earlier slide. As you can see, in 2022, we had just over 147,000 unplanned out of service hours compared to our current 2025 projections of just 43,000. The background graph and white numbers in each bar represent the annual vertical transportation assets for each year. If we're successful in achieving our 2025 projections for out of service hours, we'll have seen a decrease of approximately 70% from 2022 while our VT portfolio continues to grow. Next slide, please. While we've seen some significant positive progress over the years, we're not without our own operations and maintenance challenges. We talked about our asset portfolio growth, our work towards standardization. Currently, we have a portfolio of many makes, models, and vintages of vertical transportation assets. We're trying to work through standardization through our specifications on new expansions, as well as our modernization program. We also work through qualifying technicians as definitely a risk, a challenge that we deal with. The region has a very small labor pool of qualified technicians that local vendors currently battle for. And we couple that with not only technicians that are capable to work on the variety of assets that we have, but also technicians that are willing to work in a harsh transit environment. Next slide, please. Over the past few years, we've had some continuous improvement, including attaching live real-time monitoring equipment on all of our vertical transportation assets, giving us live updates and immediate notice of outages. We've enhanced our communications back in 2024 with the addition of the passenger information coordinators, becoming a process of the vertical transportation outage process, which has decreased the amount of time it takes to dispatch a technician to an outage, as well as increased our communications to passengers, not only to be alerted of when their piece of equipment becomes inoperable, but when it becomes back in service. We also had an annual deep cleaning contract, which has enhanced the cleanliness of our vertical transportation assets, and obviously our vertical transportation modernization program. Next slide, please. The vertical transportation team continues to be on the leading edge of the asset management technology here at Sound Transit, using existing data streams and piloting new technology in categories such as passenger traffic analysis and service life metrics of critical components in our continued effort to increase overall passenger availability and extend the useful life of our vertical transportation assets. That concludes my presentation, and happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you so much. I want to highlight again slides 6 and 7, the year-to-date performance and the number of out-of-service hours and just the incredible work that your team has done. And I know this board has voted to invest in this work, but to see that those positive numbers is really awesome. So thank you for your team's work. Board Member George, go ahead.
Honestly, that's what I was going to say. I'm just joined the board this year, but I remember all the media coverage and all the attention on the outages. And slide 7 was really impressive. You've come a really long way, and it's one of those things where when everything's working the way it's supposed to, you're not going to get a lot of attention or credit for that, right? They only notice when the planes aren't landing, so just kudos, really good job on getting those numbers down.
Great, thank you, Board Member George. Sorry to steal your thunder there. John, one question on the cleaning. You mentioned specifically the annual deep cleaning, and I know that there can be sort of real-time issues that can cause outages of the system. What is the sort of high-level answer to how often we clean elevators, escalators, and what does it look like? Is it different now than it has been? Because it feels like that as a user of the system, but.
Thank you for that question, Chair Walker. So depending on the location, whether it's a Sounder location, a Link location, our partners or our cleaning custodial vendors are kind of typically responsible for the day-to-day cleaning of our elevators and escalators. What our deep cleaning contract does is kind of like a really deep clean using heavy equipment, getting off things like graffiti or acid etching. There is in our current that deep cleaning contract, there is some rapid response for things like biohazard, perhaps, or if for things like stickers or excessive graffiti that needs to be removed rapidly. We do have the capability and use that deep cleaning team to respond to those things.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. And I know that was mentioned in the budget that there would be some ramp up of cleaning in general of the system when we have such increased ridership anticipated increased ridership during the World Cup. And are our vendors able to ramp up, or will we be needing to look at additional contracts for folks during that time?
Currently, we're forecasted to ramp up, especially the bigger stations that are going to be very heavily used. So stations like Westlake International District, or King Street Station, those are definitely going to be ramped up by our current deep cleaning vendor.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. It looks like there aren't any other questions or comments, so we'll wrap up. Thanks again for being here. All right, we don't have any executive session today. Is there any other business to come before the committee? I did want to circle back on one question that we heard a couple comments during public comment about the express bus survey and particularly the Route 542. And I'm curious, I think the survey's still open now. First of all, if it is, can we make sure we encourage folks to take it? And second of all, when will this committee be getting additional information on that survey? Oh, good. Emily, hello.
Good afternoon. Thank you for that question, Chair Walker. I'm Emily Yasakochi, Director of System and Service Planning here at Sound Transit. The survey is still open and it will remain open until November 11th. I believe we are still pushing out information by social media and other methods to continue to solicit input via that survey. We have received many emails as well, just with written comments. Some of the comments that we have received is that the survey doesn't include routes that aren't changing and the ability to comment on those. And so we definitely have been receiving comments separately by email, and those will be part of the engagement summary. And we have been letting people know that is an option as well. So I think the question was around, sorry, I was paying attention to my walk up to
That's okay.
the podium.
When will we get results from the surveys?
Yes. So we are planning to, so after the survey closes, we will take basically to most of the rest of the year to compile and summarize everything. And then we would love to come back to Rio in January to provide a summary of our findings.
And then we will be making a decision halfway through next year?
We're looking at March,
okay.
Rio and full board.
So we'll have a couple months with the information. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, any other comments? All right, seeing none, our next Rider Experience and Operations Committee meeting is scheduled for Thursday, December 4th at 1 p.m. here in the Ruth Fisher Boardroom and virtually via Zoom. The link to join the meeting virtually will be provided on the Sound Transit website as well as the meeting agenda. And with that, we are adjourned.